You know, the biggest question right now that people are asking, and certainly we get it here at Keeping Current Matters, is how do I answer the question, should I buy a home right now? You know, if you look around, and certainly if you're a consumer thinking about buying a home and you turn on the news and you hear about the housing market and you hear about how homes could lose value and how the housing boom is over and all the things that are repeatedly communicated through headlines and through the media that are oftentimes misleading, I think this is a question that's going to come up over and over and over. And as real estate professionals, we need to answer this question confidently and with an expert market perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of set up a way to answer this question with really, perspective on two particular topics. Now, I don't believe these topics are all inclusive and the only things you need to ask, but I think it's a great place to start from. And it really is, what do I believe about interest rates and what do I believe about home prices, right? That's the financial aspect of owning a home. We certainly need to talk about the non-financial aspects of home ownership. But those two things, home prices and interest rates, certainly are reducing affordability in the market. And we're in an inflection point right now in real estate where the last couple of years, we saw tremendous demand and we saw limited supply when everybody rushed into the market. And we're seeing the exact opposite. We're seeing more supply and less demand due to the rise in interest rates and certainly the quick rise in home prices over the last couple of years. So if we break this question down, the first thing I want to start with is I want to start with a market perspective, a relevant market perspective on interest rates. What do we believe about that right now? And I'm going to tell you what I know, what I don't know, give you the most up-to-date information about how interest rates are going to play out over the next several months. So the first point I always like to start with is the reality that mortgage rates have doubled this year. You know, we started off in January of this year just over 3% on the average 30-year fixed. We ended up last week just over 6.5%, and depending on who you talk to, 6.5% to 7%, a little over 7%, depending on the lender that you talk to. Rates have doubled. Mortgage rates have doubled this year. That's caused an increase in payment to the tune on the average home in this country of about $1,000. And people are going, I'm not sure, one, I can afford it, and there certainly have been people that have priced out in this market. Two, I don't know if I want to buy right now with high interest rates. And oh, by the way, if I believe home prices are going to go down, I certainly don't want to buy. And we'll address that question here in just a minute. But, this rise in interest rates, I always want to use this graphic to set, sort of the conversation. It's defining reality in real estate right now. This rise in interest rates has caused the inflection point that I talked about earlier. So let's go to the next piece. What do we believe about interest rates? Well, this is from Mark Fleming, the chief economist at First American, and he said this: while mortgage rates are expected to continue to drift higher over the coming months, much of the rapid increase in rates is likely behind us. Now, let's hope he's right in that and the rapid increase being behind us. But he says nationally, while month-over-month house prices may decline, annual house price declines are not expected, given the ongoing supply-demand imbalance and continued strength in the labor market. Now, again, I'm going to talk about prices in just a minute. Mark's saying house price declines are not expected. There are some that are saying that, and we'll cover that. But no doubt, this rise in interest rates has caused what we're seeing. And oh, by the way, this is all about inflation. What do I believe about inflation? I believe eventually the Fed's work will have an impact on inflation, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. And what they're doing is responding, not leading in this fight. And we know that inflation is the enemy of long-term interest rates. So when I know that, I can give perspective to those that I'm working with about the interest rate environment. What is the other thing that I know? Right now, as the Fed continues to raise the Fed funds rate, not the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, all of that in an effort to tame inflation, you hear more and more people call for recession. Okay, matter of fact, early October here, KPMG, the big consulting firm, said this: global CEOs see a mild and short recession, yet optimistic about the global economy over a 3-year horizon. It goes on to say more than 8 out of 10 anticipate a recession over the next 12 months, with more than half expecting it to be mild and short. So what they're saying is, We expect a recession. They're saying in this case they expect it to be mild and short, but no doubt what we're going to hear is more and more people call for a recession as the Fed continues to act. Why are they acting? To slow down the economy and control inflation. Well, what do we know about that? Well, if you go all the way back to the 80s, a recession has meant falling mortgage rates in this country. So the things that we want to communicate are, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what's happening in the economy. They're having an impact in long-term interest rates. Oh, by the way, experts are calling for recession. When that's happened, going all the way back to the 80s, here's what's happened to interest rates. We can give our relevant market perspective. So does somebody want to buy today and talk about that? Do they want to wait until rates come down? Well, you got to talk about prices in that too, which we're going to get to in just a minute. But that's how I bring a relevant market perspective to the interest rate conversation. And oh, by the way, if they say, I want to wait until rates come down, I would say that's what a lot of people want to do. We're at a time right now where we're seeing more inventory in the market, less frenzy, less multiple offers, less offers over ask, and that can be an advantage. If you believe rates are going to come down, you could refinance then. I'm not in favor of anybody buying something they can't afford to refinance. You certainly need to qualify for it and have to afford it within your budget. But looking at that from that perspective will help them make a powerful and confident decision for their family. You know, when KCM was started 14 years ago, it was started on the premise from a Dave Ramsey quote saying, if you're looking for help with, insurance, buying a home, borrowing money, anything a major purchase in life, look for someone with a heart of a teacher, not the heart of a salesperson. And if we adopt the heart of a teacher and can teach those that we're working with, this is what's happening right now relative to interest rates, we can then help them make a powerful and confident decision. So the second question that always comes up is, what about home prices? That's a question we need to be asking ourselves. And I started off this, talking about the headlines that are out there that say home prices are going to fall and depreciation in residential real estate is coming. I think that when people start to consume that, they're not in our business. They go, I don't know why I would buy a home right now. That is a logical question, and we need to be educated on exactly what's happening in this country. So, first point here, 2023 home price forecast. This is a look right now at what experts are saying. We've surveyed 6 economists here, 6 organizations, and said, okay, what do you believe about home prices? Fannie, Freddie, MBA, NAR, the Home Price Expectation Survey, Ivy Zelman. And when we average that out, the average of all 6 of those forecasters, including one calling for depreciation, is right at 2%, 1.8%. Now, what does everybody hear in this when they call for it? It's Ivy Zelman, calling for depreciation. They don't talk about the other 5 that are calling for appreciation in residential real estate. That's bad news travels fast. That's what gets out there in the world and in the market, and we have to pay attention to that. And say, okay, this is what's being said across a number of forecasters. Now, people always ask, well, aren't these forecasters invested in real estate? They're all real estate-based companies. They are. And you certainly can ask yourself and bring your perspective to that. I would say 2 things about that. One, they have the access to the best information possible. All the transactions, everything they're seeing, and certainly they're making their forecast based upon that and assumptions they believe about that. 2, every one of them wants to get it right so that they can come back and say, look, we got it right, and we are the ones that told you what was going to happen. So, if you start to look at this, you start to look across the board, and you look at who's forecasting appreciation, who's forecasting depreciation, you can then give good advice. I will tell you there is a bias right now for those that focus on existing home sales. They're generally forecasting appreciation. Those that focus on builders are generally forecasting nominal depreciation. Now, I think that's interesting as we look at the market that we're in right now, but let's keep on this track. Zillow just came out with a study talking about the markets that will experience appreciation and depreciation in this country. Now, we're starting to see more people talk about that, overheated markets over the last couple of years. Some folks saying, hey, they will experience depreciation. This is built at the MSA level. MSA stands for the Metropolitan Statistical Area. The way I always think about this is a radio station. A radio station covers a geographic area, not just a county or a zip code or, a particular area. area, but think about that like an MSA. Okay, it's a region. And they've said in this country, 618 MSAs are expected to appreciate, 257 expected to depreciate. So first point here, far fewer expected to depreciate than those that are expected to appreciate, 600 to basically 250. Second point, those that they've called for depreciating, the overwhelming majority are around 1% to 1.3%. I mean, 1 to 3%. Here's what's important about that. When somebody hears the depreciation word, they think, we're about to lose 10 or 20% in home values across this country and we're in trouble. That's not what they've said. Very, very few have they said are even greater than 5%. Only 4 areas in this country, 4 markets that are out there. I think that's important to remember because sort of, emotion takes over at that point. We think everybody's calling for depreciation, and not the case. Certainly not the case. Let's keep on this story. The Home Price Expectation Survey. If you followed Keeping Current Matters, we use the Home Price Expectation Survey every quarter. That's when it's updated to say, okay, where are prices going? This is a survey of around 100 economists, experts, real estate professionals, and they say, where do you think the market is heading? Again, we see some similarities here. Many more are calling for appreciation than depreciation. Okay, same as the Zillow study, starting to see some similarities there. Maybe in some cases they're calling for a little bit more depreciation, or a couple of economists calling for that greater than 5%, 2 calling for it greater than 10%, but a very, very small fraction of those. Okay, we want to start to look at that and say, okay, what does that mean? How do I help explain this to those that I'm working with relative to what do I believe, number one, about our market? If I can talk about, the national real estate market, then I need to bring my local expertise to the pricing conversation and say, based on what we're seeing, this is what we believe will take place over the next 12 months. Okay, if we continue on this, I'm going to give you 2 other pieces of information from the Home Price Expectation Survey. They look at prices also going all the way out to 2026. And this is cumulative appreciation as forecasted in the 3rd quarter of this year, looking all the way to the end of 2026. What do they believe? Well, the optimists say there will be a total of 43.7% appreciation, a lot of appreciation in residential real estate between here and there. The average of all the panelists say 24.6%. The pessimists say 8.7%. So here's my question to you. Where do you fit in sort of that sliding scale? Optimistic, pessimistic, either way you look at it, you can bring your best perspective to home prices looking out between here and I'm going to call it the next 5 years. Okay, if you take this one step further, this is their expert forecast for the next 5 years. 9.75% appreciation this year, then 2.5, sort of to 3.5 and 4, all the way to 2026. Why is this important? Historically in this country, home prices have appreciated by 3.8%. We've seen tremendous appreciation over the last, I'm going to call it 2.5, almost 3 years now. 2020, 2021, and now this year in 2022. Well above historically what we've seen in this country. And we're coming back to a much more normalized market. Yes, there are those calling for depreciation, but it's not everybody and it's not everywhere. That's what we have to keep in mind as we bring our perspective to those that are thinking about buying right now and asking this question, should I buy? That's where we started from. But I'll leave you with this. I have one more slide that I want to show you, and it's this right here. The real crisis in housing today is not only at the lower end. We know that we need more affordable housing and entry-level homes all across this country, but it's really with rents. This is a look going all the way back to 1988 at the median asking price for rent, and it has gone consistently up. One thing that I would have a really good handle on right now as I'm talking to somebody about this, about should I buy right now, is what does a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment cost to rent where we live? What does a house cost to rent? Because then I can bring that conversation. If we're just looking at the financial aspects of home ownership, I can talk to them about rates. I can talk to them about pricing. I can talk to them about renting. And if they're not going to buy, they have to rent unless they're living somewhere rent-free. Then you have to just say, maybe you should live rent-free. But that is the real crisis in this country, is the way rents have escalated. If you can't buy right now, and people certainly have been priced out, you have to rent. And oh, by the way, it's getting more expensive. I think that point right there is critically important, because a couple of things here as I wrap this up. First, we're talking about the financial benefits of homeownership. It's time that we talk to people too in this conversation about the non-financial benefits of homeownership. How homeowners, feel more secure, they feel more successful, they're able to own their home, and we know all the benefits of that. Oh, by the way, how do people build wealth in this country? The number one way that people build wealth in this country is through homeownership over time. And that's certainly what I believe will happen in the future with homeownership. It's why investors are buying right now, because they know owning a home and real estate is a great investment. So hope this helps you answer the question confidently of should I buy a home right now, and gives you the information you need to bring a relevant, fact-based market opinion to the clients you serve.